Lawyers of Reddit, what's the worst way you've seen a person screw over someone else in court, whether it be criminal, civil, or divorce proceedings? Not a lawyer. But my dad is a physician and is sometimes called as a professional witness in cases of malpractice. In one memorable case, a family was suing a doctor for something fairly frivolous, and my dad was a witness for the defense. The lawyer representing the family was cross-examining my dad and brought up a chapter in a medical textbook and asked my dad to read a highlighted paragraph. He does. And the lawyer says something to the effect of, "So, what you just read means blah blah medical thing." My dad confidently replied, "No, it does not mean that." Lawyer: "No, but if you read this, the author clearly states blah blah medical thing." Dad: "No. Really? That's not what the author means." Lawyer: "How do you know that's not what the author meant?" Dad: "Well, because I wrote it." Judge basically facepalm while the lawyer mimicked a goldfish and stared at the author name on the chapter. Basically the best moment of my dad's professional life. Yes. Ruling was in the defendant's favor. I'm a paralegal. The best situations are when we get a sovereign citizen, someone in the USA who thinks that the US laws do not apply to them for a vast variety of reasons, hire us but won't let us do anything on their case. We've had to actually fire a bunch of clients because they have gone against our rules, like, don't send a letter to the judge. Don't write your own motions. Don't announce that you're not Mark Smith because Mark Smith has capital letters and you were born with lowercase letters. Etc. Honestly, a whole thread on these people wouldn't be enough. A wife filed for a restraining order because she wanted the house during divorce. Husband has good job. Like $200k per year. Employer finds out about restraining order. Husband is fired. He was very specialized employee, so only job he can find close to house. Ex-wife and daughter is $50k. House gets foreclosed. Child support at less than $500 per month. Wife has to get job as waitress. 4 cars get repossessed. Not a lawyer. But I was a jury foreman on a case about 5 years back. Guy was accused of attempting to kill his girlfriend. Various charges up and down the severity were filed. However, victim's testimony wasn't terribly convincing, especially after cross. And there was only evidence that something had happened in the house that night, but not necessarily that the BF had done it. Anyway, defense's turn to present, and they unexpectedly recess for the day. We come back the next day, and the defendant testifies. He puts himself at the scene and admits to hitting her. We ended up convicting him of everything but attempted murder, if I remember right. Afterwards, the judge came into the jury room and told us that the unexpected recess the previous day was because the defendant insisted on testifying against his lawyer and the judge's advice. If he hadn't testified, basically no chance we would have convicted him. Play stupid games. Win stupid prizes. Not a lawyer, but when my Phil and Mill got divorced, she wanted to file jointly for the previous year because they were still married. They would have gotten a decent refund. He insisted on filing separately, despite the fact that he would owe 4k, because he wanted her to also owe the IRS. He did it to frost her ass. Defendant trying to overturn default judgment claims person process server served wasn't him. Couldn't possibly be him. Etc. At hearing, process server testifies he clearly recognizes defendant there in court 2 years later because defendant physically threatened him at time of service. Made himself pretty memorable. Oh, and process server was sure he served the right guy. BC at time of service. He had photo of defendant, which my client had helpfully sourced on mugshots. I can't remember the specifics of the story, but my mom is a lay magistrate but was working for a domestic violence service at one stage and had a client who was terminally ill, and she advised them to change their will so their possibly separated abusive partner wouldn't be entitled to anything when they passed away. Client passed away. Abusive partner stormed into the law firm dealing with the will demanding to know where their share of the finances etc were and was simply told they'd been written out of the will and the case couldn't be discussed with them. Best way to screw someone over rather than the worst. It's not someone else. But it's timeless and I bet every criminal lawyer has seen it. Us. We've gotten you an incredible result. Just stand up and apologize and don't say anything else. Client. Okay. Us. No, seriously, we mean it. Don't monologue. Just say you're sorry. And we've convinced the judge to give you a lenient sentence. Client. Okay. Judge. Defendant, do you have anything to say? Client. Extended monologue about how unfairly he's been treated. Judge. Hammer. Us. Here in Missouri, a Golden Corral is being sued for the death of an elderly man. He was choking and manager asked if anyone could help. An employee waved their hand and said they could. The manager stopped them and sent them away. The man died obviously. The stupid part here is the corporate lawyer's defense to have case tossed is they didn't owe that man any aid and he died from his own fault for not cutting his food up into smaller pieces. The case is tragic but the lawyer's defense is just outright rude and will cost them if it goes to trial. Basically all custody battles where neither parent is a legitimately horrible person parent everyone is better off without. The kids always get screwed. I've seen a parent use non-existent discipline as a tool to win over their teenage child. So that the child will choose to live with said rubbish parent. And rubbish parent will receive child support from the other parent. It boils my blood seeing someone allowing their 15-year-old child to drop out of school. Get high every day. Buy them drugs. Alcohol. Just about every negative thing you could do to a kid. Just so they don't have to pay $100 in child support a month. Edit. For everyone commenting on the fact that the child support payments were so cheap. Child support amounts in my jurisdiction are relative based upon the paying parenting's situation. Income. Schooling. Assets. Etc. They were deadbeats. Part-time under-the-table seasonal employment in government welfare. Had a criminal jury trial for misdemeanor criminal mischief over 4 years ago. State filed charges and kept amending the information to the point where they left the actual victim out of the trial and proceeded with the 2 eyewitnesses. Well, one of the witnesses was my client's ex and the other witness was the ex's new GF. They claimed my client vandalized the actual victim's car. Client denied everything. Well, apparently, the state and both witnesses had no idea that the ex had an outstanding warrant for not paying child support to my client which created a motive for him to lie. Asked him if he was aware that he had a warrant out for his arrest on the stand. He didn't know. The judge excused the jurors. The bailiffs arrested the ex on the stand. State rested. Judge granted our motion for judgment of acquittal because we had good case law for the victim not being there. Client walked away free and the ex went to jail. Was involved in a custody case where a wife cheated on her husband and had a child as a result. She let husband believe the child was his until she was about 5 years old and they were divorcing. To stop him from getting custody, she convinced the biological father to try to get custody thinking that if he won she would wind up with the child. Became a huge 3-way fight. Multiple sets of grandparents involved. Attorney's fees skyrocketed because the case would have been pretty quick otherwise. She couldn't pay her attorney. Tried to get the bio dad too. Got even messier. Etc. Basically there still isn't an agreement all parties will follow. They are in and out of court every year or so. She screwed herself. That poor kid. There's a lawyer in my town who has a reputation for being a real dick. He left a very successful firm to go off on his own. He and the firm negotiated which clients he would take. And how eventual fees from those clients would be divided. All seemed fine and dandy. As soon as he's out the door, he sues his old firm saying the deal is unenforceable and that he should 100% of the fees from the clients who came with him. He lost. And appealed. Lost again and appealed to the state Supreme Court where they shut his ass down and, in extremely diplomatic language, pretty much called him a dick. Not my case, but still my favorite story. Dude screwed himself over when he went to jury trial for a burglary charge and wore the same distinct sweatshirt he wore the night he committed the crime. Kind of hard to argue the guy in the video isn't your client at that point. Needless to say, he was convicted and spent a few years in dock. Not a lawyer, but I sat on the jury of a man who was accused of molesting his 10-year-old niece. He elected to testify in his own defense, and his defense was, "I did it. But it was her idea." It was his third felony strike, so he will be spending, with luck, the rest of his life in prison. Not caught. But live PD traffic stop. I was watching and the guy told the officer, "I have caffeine pills in my back pocket," gets them out, puts them on the hood. Everyone's chill. Dude then comes clean and says it's Molly, and the officers look at each other and go, "Do we even have a test kit for that?" Other officer says no. Dude's face just shows he should have kept his mouth shut.